Near a crave, but I'm still standing tall. Got 1,000 flaws, but I love them all. Work in progress, that's my theme song. Every scar's a story, every step's my glory. Bear with me, I'm a work in progress. Bear with me, still finding my process. Bear with me, it's a beautiful mess.
Hey, hey, beautiful souls, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first episode of Care Conversations of 2026. I am your host, Adrienne Dionne. I'm so very glad to be here. I really, really am. Um, I have been off the scene for some months now, and not because, I did not want to be here and talking to you guys about all the amazing things that are happening. However, it was just simply because life was just really lifing for me for a while. Our last episode was back in September, and it was about the 5 stages of grief. And unfortunately, I'm still grieving, but I'm grieving in a different manner. Uh, Sitting by the bedside at that particular time, trying to just make sure that my presence was known. Uh, Went to the other side. Egan didn't make it. He did actually get out of the hospital on September the 22nd, but he transitioned on October the 27th. So, this particular episode, I just want to put out there as a disclaimer that I am going to be speaking about that because this episode is going to be dedicated to him and all of the amazing things that he put forward into this world. And because of this, I'm putting out there as a disclaimer that I am dedicating this episode to Egan. Uh, you know, I'm currently working my way through a new normal, and I would be remiss to not allow this to settle as a transition from that portion of my life until this new cycle that's starting right now. I as once again, as a disclaimer, we will be talking about, you know, the unfortunate transition of Egean Collins, and also, just the ineptitude of our healthcare system, just a little bit. And then, of course, transition again into this new normal that is probably, I'm not the only one that has gone through something traumatic over the last few months or the last few days or the last few years, if you will. Um, but I do want to make sure that we are present and understanding that we just started a brand new year. Those of us who are here and able to enjoy it and be grateful in it and understand it and not take it for granted that we are still drawing breath and that we still have life to live. I just want to take a pause for the cause and just have a moment of silence as an attitude of gratitude. So just let's just pause for a couple seconds and take a deep breath in. And one more. And once again. And we do that to open the door for clarity so that we can center ourselves in the space that we're occupying right now. Let me apologize ahead of time. I'm just getting over some kind of cold. And if I cough, please forgive me. I do have something to drink right here. But yeah, I don't want to cough too much into the microphone. That sounds awful. But yeah, Egean, the Collins, so grateful to have been a witness to his life, and for 22 years, I was able to walk beside this man and really gain an insight into the life and the legend and the legacy of who he was. I met him back in 2003, and not even by happenstance. It was really a friend of mine that introduced us. Well, technically, she didn't. She kind of told me there's a man she wanted to introduce me to, and he just happened to be walking down the street as we were talking about him. So, first of all, I thought it was a joke because there were two men walking down the street. One was on the other side of the street, and that's where I happened to be looking. And he was pushing a shopping cart, and just kind of looking a little bit homeless. And I was like, girl, you really don't like me. What are we talking about? She was like, girl, not that one. Look over there. And as I look, it just was almost kind of majestic because the sun was setting and he was walking, and this whole sunset behind his body had this silhouette going. And I was like, okay. And, you could tell this was a man that was about his business, about his body. You could tell, even though he was a little distance, but the closer he got, I could tell he was about taking care of himself. But, I wanted to know more because I was, I'm into the Fine Brothers. Let's not get it twisted. So I introduced myself. And we had a discussion about, fitness and things and what I did. At that time, I was a massage therapist and he was all for that. And I was, kind of interested in what he was doing. We exchanged numbers. And that's the day I want to say I became his witness. So, needless to say, I am going to title this episode, The Purpose of a Witness. Because, a lot of times we don't, we're not here. Lives aren't here to be witnessed. They're here to be experienced. And I did both with him. I was able to get better insight as to who this man was and what he stood for. And, you know, as time went on, we actually got to know each other on a deeper level than just physicality. So it would be more of him telling me how he ended up in the fitness world, which was, an on the job injury, two rods and six screws in his back because, he had a spinal injury, and he had to learn to walk again and all these things. And, he kind of had an ultimatum: either you get fit or you don't live a normal life. So he decided to do the fitness thing, which he apparently turned out to be very good at. So, at the time I was doing my own thing with my massage therapy practice and, just spa parties, and, just doing private practice and these types of things. So he told me he wanted to open a gym, which he actually ultimately did. And it was titled Common Sense Fitness. And, I was actually elated to be a newcomer in his life and be able to be a part of that transition of him opening his gym and him allowing me to assist him with what it looked like, what it felt like, what it was going to be. We weren't even really a couple or anything at that time. I was just somebody that could assist him with the business side of how to open his practice or open his gym. Then he invited me to open my practice within the gym, which was, at the time, Ultimate Touch Massage Therapy, which I had a space in the back of the gym doing massage therapy and rehabilitative work on some of the clients that came, and so on and so forth. So that story started back in 2003, and I witnessed him flourish from there. He decided that the gym wasn't something that he wanted to keep full time, so he decided to do classes outside of the gym. So closed the gym and started Fit, Firm, and Fine classes throughout Miami-Dade County. And then he started working with Miami-Dade County, where he was actually doing fitness work with them. Now, the whole point of me telling this story is so that the power of a witness, I was there to witness the beginning of this whole fitness journey and his dedication to taking care of yourself and your body and your mind and your spirit, and how far that took him into the fitness world. Just his belief, of if you take care of your body will take care of you. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, because we're going to come forward to, I can mention so many things that he did. He wrote the book, The Solution, which was the personal training manual. He started those classes. He decided that he wanted to devise an actual system that people can follow that would allow them to maintain weight and get fine and get fit and all of those things. So that's why it was called Fit, Firm, and Fine. And the actual name of the system was Economics, and so on and so forth. And before that, he actually even had a radio show called the Common Sense Fitness Hour, where he was talking about fitness. So why am I going on and on and on about this whole fitness deal? Because sometimes things don't land the way we think they will. This was a beautiful run we had from 2003 with the Common Sense Fitness Hour, the Economics, the actual fitness style. We have Fit, Firm, and Fine, which were the classes. We had him inventing the AbDoc, which was the abdominal training system. That was something else that we worked on together. Then just him actually doing videos, and him starting his Facebook page, and then, going from 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers, and all the people that were there to listen to all of this amazing advice that he had to give about taking care of yourself, making sure that you were on top of your fitness. And then we'll fast forward to March of 2020, when all of this made a big change, where no matter the amount of fitness, they couldn't figure out what caused his heart to start racing. So on March 8th of 2020, he went into the hospital because his heart's racing. You don't know what's happening, so we make sure we're trying to stay on top of it. He ends up in there for 12 days. Nobody knowing what's happening. Nobody can figure out what this thing is. Why is his heart beating at such a rapid, intense rate, where, to be honest with you, if he wasn't in such great shape, probably would have killed him long before he actually took his transition. We were there for 12 days. I would go to work, I'd get off, I'd go back to the hospital. I'd go to work, get off, go back to the hospital. Until finally, he had an ablation done, which is them severing a portion of the valve in the heart to try to actually get it to jump start. And that worked probably for a little bit, but they could never figure out what the real cause of his arrhythmias were. And this is where we probably should have been a little more vigilant about the healthcare system, because the doctor literally said, we don't know what happened. We just figured that some kind of virus just crawled down your throat and attacked your heart. And we rolled with it. So he's like, hey, I'm going to send you to the cardiologist, and we'll get you on some meds and get you fixed up. So there we are. Home the same day the world shuts down. The world shuts down to COVID. The whole world stops. He makes it home. We get on this new regimen of lisinopril or whatever the heck the medication is, it's working, it's doing what it needs to do, but he's never the same. Slowly but surely, he starts to diminish. We still don't know what the cause of this was. I'm going to go on a limb and say COVID, but because it's never been medically diagnosed, people are like, don't say that. But I mean, come on, let's be real. What else could it have been? So, why am I saying all of this? Because we never really know. Care conversations are really about being able to celebrate, affirm, restore, and embrace all of the things that happen in our lives. And this is my story. This is me witnessing all of the magic and all of the beauty and also all of the demise that took place in Egean's life. All of the things that nobody else was there to see, nobody else was there to witness. As time went on, the heart never stopped doing that. It never stopped racing. It would for a little bit, and then it would start again. So we'd end up back in the ER, having to get medications and all these things, misdiagnosis and all, so on and so forth. So for 5 years, this was our normal, and it got more frequent. We changed cardiologists, we changed doctors. We're trying to figure out what this thing is. And still until, we finally found, it just actually developed into congestive heart failure, which is one of those things that there's really no cure for. It just becomes it becomes manageable. How about that? So here we are managing the congestive heart failure. And then we finally get a cardiologist that says, hey, listen, we'll put an ICD in, which will actually shock your heart back into place in the event that you might have a heart attack. God forbid. But just in case, here we go. And that was in June of 2025. But every point up until that point, we were being misguided, misdiagnosed, mistreated, but at the same time, Egean was a trooper, man. That man never stopped going to the gym. He continued to press his message. He just continued to make sure that everybody understood, when you take care of your body will take care of you. That was his philosophy. Take care of your body will take care of you. But how does this happen to, but his didn't. His body didn't take care of him. His heart, started to get weaker and weaker. Not to a point where, prior to him passing away, his ejection fraction was 10%. And he had lived like that for quite a while, to be honest with you. And that's unheard of. But that was because he was in such good shape at that particular point, until he went into the hospital in August of 2025. And that changed everything. He ended up intubated. Never seen that in my life. Tubes down his throat, can't talk, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, he fought and he made it. But they refused to unintubate him. So he stayed there too long in that position, in that particular state, and he developed what they call ICU delirium, which messes with your mind. So now he's got mental issues, which nobody's addressing. And I promise you, I did not get on here to make this morbid or weird. I'm really getting on here because we've just started a brand new year. And I'm here to let you know that this is where I've been, to be honest. That's part of it. But also to make you aware that life is precious, life is fleeting, life is fluid, life is a lot of things. And those of us that are here, have an opportunity to be a witness for each other, for ourselves, and the purpose of being the witness is to tell the story accurately. And the point of me saying all of the things that I'm saying is that, first of all, our healthcare system needs a complete overhaul. Second of all, you know, we can romanticize certain things about life as much as we possibly can, but at the end of the day, it may not turn out the way we thought it would. And how do we get through that? How do we manage that part of the situation? Because once again, he went in on August the 7th with this whole different, we thought it was going to be, hey, listen, can't breathe, go to the hospital, get the treatment, get the things. It didn't turn out that way. He was there for 50 days. Yes, I said 50, 50. And it wasn't a good visit. It wasn't, you're thinking that the doctors and the nurses and the people would have the patient's best interests at heart, but at the end of the day, it just didn't turn out that way. So you or me or anybody who is witnessing, the purpose of the witness, these situations, how do we transition through all of this? How do you come out on the other side and still be okay? Because even while this person is going through whatever they're going through, you're also going through something as well. Like I said back in September, I'm hoping that my presence is enough because you can only hear me. You can't respond because you have a tube down your throat. And then when you are finally able to respond, it's not coherently because now you're not even sure where you are. So now it's my job to give you instruction in the midst of trying to understand what's happening. That's my point of telling the story. The purpose of the witness is, how well am I sustaining this situation without losing myself completely in the situation? And this is for anybody who has ever been faced with this type of unsettling, disturbing treatment with the medical care profession. Yes, this man did everything that he needed to do to make sure that he took care of his body. But what happens when the rest is left up to somebody else? And when you finally do come out of whatever state you're in, you're not the same person. Your body doesn't look like it did when you went in. What do? How do you cope? How do you make it right? Especially when so many other things have now taken effect that weren't present when you got there. Then now you, as the caregiver or the person that is there to witness all of the things that are either going right or going wrong, how do you transition through this? I'm going to tell my story because I don't know anybody else's story, but I feel you. My heart goes out to you. My prayers are with you. My mind knows that you can do this because I did. Witnessing the transitions and the different phases, it just seemed like I was always there when something new happened. And it wasn't by coincidence or by accidents because I don't believe in any of that. I was always there when a new phase took place, when you spoke for the first time, when you recognized what was going on, when you weren't at your best and I'm begging for some assistance, the ICU delirium, all of the things that transpired during this 50-day stay. until when they let you go because he stabilized. They sent him home, never addressing the mental issue. Excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. Never addressing the mental issues, never addressing the things that were going to take a toll on the opposite side of what's happening. So they sent me home with a stranger. I don't know how to do this, nor was I given any instructions. So now, how, even not really understanding what kind of transitions I was going through at the time, because I literally was still going to my 9 to 5 every day, going to my job every day, and then coming straight from there to the hospital. And that was every day, except for maybe 5. And that wasn't all at once. It was like, you know what? I'm exhausted. I can't. I don't have it. I want to, but I can't. So somebody else would go. But at the end of the day, the transition is for lack of a better term, nerve-wracking. And you don't even realize it. You don't even realize that your nerves are on edge. You don't realize that because you haven't been getting proper rest, and because you're worried, and because you're stressed out, and because you want something different to happen and it's not happening, that you're not getting what you need. And at the end of the day, that counts. Because of course, remember now, the mantra of cuddle power is no matter what anybody says, thinks, or does, the ultimate goal is taking care of yourself. So you're responsible now for another person that you're not even sure how to take care of, and for taking care of you. Who, in my situation, I didn't even realize I was as bad off as I was until I actually ended up having to go to the urgent care, and my blood pressure was sky high. And she was like, okay, listen, you got to do something or I'm going to admit you. And I was like, no, I can't be admitted because I got to go take care of my significant other. No, we can't do this. So I had to figure it out. At the end of the day, it got to a point where I had to make a decision, because once again, I was sent home with a stranger. The man that left my home on August the 7th was not the man that returned on September the 22nd. So there was definitely some friction there, to say the least. Some real friction where, things were just not going well. And I could feel it all through my body. And when I say all through my body, I mean all through my body. I was vibrating from the inside out. Literally vibrating. And I had to make a decision. And the decision was, I cannot care for you and be in this volatile situation all at the same time. So I left the space. And to be honest with you, I didn't leave it because I didn't want to be there and take care of the situation. I left it because my mental, my spiritual, and my physical health was definitely at risk. And one of the most loving and compassionate things you can do for yourself and somebody else is to walk away from a situation that is no longer suiting to your health, period. Because how do you care for somebody if you can't be functional enough to take care of them? So what I did was I removed myself from the space, but I would come back and make sure that all the things got done. And I'm doing this from a very honest place. I know somebody on here is frowning right now. How dare you leave a sick man? That's not the situation, because I was sick too. Didn't know it. Had no idea that I was as bad off as I was. But I had to take care of my mental capacity and my physical capacity in order to finish my assignment, to finish the witnessing. because I witnessed all the way up until this point. I'm witnessing all of these breakdowns in the healthcare system, calling for help, asking, what can I do? Who can I get? What do I need to do next? Nobody had answers for me. Calling people that I thought could assist with no type of recourse. Nobody is assisting. So here we are, loving from afar, but still loving nonetheless, still attempting to make sure you get what you need while you need it. So this whole story, this whole episode dedicated to Egean Collins is about what happens on the other side of the grief, what happens in the midst of the grief. Because once again, we want one thing to be truer than the other, and that's not so. Because you can still be loving and grieving at the same time. You can still be a love and a help from afar. You can still do those things and be present without occupying the space. You can still show up and do what's necessary without losing yourself in the process. Because I knew for sure if I stay in this situation, it's not going to be any good for either of us, for anybody, for nobody. And of course that's not going to make sense to anybody, or it's not going to make sense to those who don't understand self-care. Because being a martyr for somebody else's benefit is not beneficial to anybody. Please hear me well. You have to give yourself the grace and the space to be well enough to do the things that are necessary. Because I was still making sure you eat, making sure you get your meds, making sure that you bathe, making sure that you sleep well at night, doing all the things that were necessary. But at the same time, there are outside forces that would lead you to believe you were wrong, or that you will be wrong. And I'm saying this to you because if you cannot take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else. And that's a reality. Because at the end of the day, I was there for the last meal, and I was there for the last breath. And I was there to witness all of the things that took place from 2003 until 2025. All of the beautiful moments and all of the ones that were not so great. Even for those that were missed. I witnessed and experienced and loved and gave into this life, and also gave permission, because I wasn't ready to let go. But who are we to keep somebody in a situation where their quality of life is not going to be what it was prior to the situation? And especially when a person tells you what they want. As much as we don't want certain things to be, we have to go with what the person wants. So at the end of the day, my whole point of this story is the purpose of a witness. And I got to witness so many amazing things, and I take them all with me. And I'm glad that I was able to rescue myself so that I could be present here right now telling you about this situation and why I've been away so long and what has been happening to me. And, the love, the loss, all of the things that transpired in between, the transition, and how I was able to, and I actually, when I did actually was able to rescue myself, I went to a safe place. You gotta, your body has to feel safe enough to calm down. Because like I said, I was literally vibrating from the inside out. I don't know if you've ever felt that, but that's not a good feeling. That means every one of my nerves was firing on intense. And I could not allow myself to be consumed by a situation that was already determined to be um, volatile. Let's just put it that way. So at the end of the day, here we are on January the 4th of 2026. I am on the other side of this situation. I'm still very saddened by the whole turn of events. I'm very angry to some degree because a lot of what was going on didn't have to happen, but it did. I am healing. I am hopeful that because I know that there was some very copious notes taken, and there's some investigations being done and some things that are transpiring that may actually impact the medical field, where we could actually get some closure. I mean, or actually some change, because it's just very unfortunate, but it is a real thing that we as African American people in the United States of America are definitely not getting the same type of care as any other race, and I'll just say Caucasian people, whether we have money or not. We're just not getting the proper care. We're definitely getting substandard care. And if we had not had Jamela in available as a cardiac nurse to at least walk us through a lot of what was happening, that would have, he might have transpired a lot sooner than what he did. And once again, the story is really to be present and to understand that being the witness and telling the story as it should go, even after all was said and done, and witnessing that last breath and understanding that, the quality of life was never going to be the same, and taking some kind of peace with, looking at the face after all was said and done, just finding some solace in the fact that, you're no longer suffering. You're not having to deal with all of the different things that took place after, you should have been healing. All of those things make a difference. They really do. They make a big, big, big difference. And until we are able to figure out how to get to the other side of this, or to the other side of whatever type of situation medically that, any of you may have had to go through or have had to endure or may encounter, once again, be mindful that you count, you matter. You have to take into account that if you're going to be a caretaker, or if you're going to be a witness to the situations, if you're going to be the one standing in the gap to make sure that the story is told properly, that you have to be accountable for your own health as well. You have to make sure that you're able to give yourself some grace and some space, that you're able to recognize the signs and the symptoms of exhaustion, over exceeding and depletion. Definitely see if you can get yourself a good team of people to assist you. If you can, if you got a support group, do that. I had a support group outside of, the hospital visits and things, but within that particular segment, it was just pretty much three of us just going back and forth trying to make sure that things were seen about. And then even at the end, after all was said and done, and, just laying Egean to rest was even its own ordeal. But at the end of the day, I am grateful that I was able to recognize my signs and symptoms so that I could actually give myself some space and grace. You know, I was very grateful that, I had started doing the work on myself long before now. Very grateful for a lot of the practices that I had put into place. I was definitely grateful for this podcast because honestly, I went back and listened to myself speaking so that I could actually get back on track. Because it was at some point where I was like, no, I don't know what to do. But then, you know what? Yes, you do. You do know what to do. You know where to go. You know how to get there. And it's already all in you. You just got to listen. You just got to be a part. You just got to make sure that you're paying attention. And, that's pretty much how, all of this transpired. I've been intending to do this podcast. I said in September I was going to do another one, and then that didn't happen. And then October and November and, December, and then now here we are. But everything happens when it's supposed to. Everything happens when it's supposed to. There's no such thing as coincidences. It's coincidences. Our lives to me are already aligned the way they're supposed to be. So, right now we are all on a journey. I am getting used to a new normal, which I think God had already started preparing me for. He gave me time away to actually process being without him, not speaking to him, to, giving me the time to understand what life would be like without his body next to mine in our bed. And all of the things that would definitely have been way more devastating had I not had the time to be away. I mean, not saying that that was a great thing, because I would have preferred it not to have happened at all, but because it did, I have to get to a point where it's acceptable. That's a part of grief. I'm not sad anymore. I am to a certain degree, but not to the point of, continuous tears the way I was at one point where I couldn't grasp myself. I am healing. And because I'm healing, I am in a different space. And all of this was not for naught. So many things have happened that aren't, all doom and gloom. Unfortunately, Egean is no longer with us physically, but he left us so much goodness behind. He left us all those wonderful videos on YouTube. He left us all those great messages on his Facebook page. He left us abdoc systems that we can, learn to use and train our abs. I don't know if your abs will ever look as great as his did, but honey, you can always try. He left us with, oh my gosh, how could I possibly forget? He left us with the EMR system, a book he wrote right and published right before he went off to the hospital. I mean, we really have had an opportunity to have an amazing, amazing man grace us with his presence and leave us with such a legacy that we can be sad, but at the end of the day, we should be grateful. Grateful that he was even here to give us the things that he left behind. If you ever want to, there's no shortage. You can always see him on, like I said, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. There's so many places that he's available to still give you the information that he had, and he never stopped, even after he got out of the hospital, even after his body had failed him, even after he wasn't sure what was really happening to him. He still wanted to tell the world about how to take care of yourself. You know, that to me, that is definitely a life well lived, a life worth preserving through witnessing, a life giving the best of himself so that you can be the best of yourself. You know, I definitely am the best of myself. You know, I don't really have any unfinished business. You know, we said all the things we needed to say. We did all the things we needed to do. And, you know, those conversations were very private. Those were the things that the rest of the world didn't know anything about, even though they thought that I had left them behind. No, these were the conversations that took place on the porch, you know, late afternoons as the sun set, over the phone, late nights when he couldn't sleep. You know, those things mattered. You know, all of that mattered. You know, and the reason I'm able to move forward in the manner that I'm moving forward with everybody saying how strong I've been is because I know that he's okay. You know, I know that he lived his life very well. It's very unfortunate how at the end everything got so distorted, but all of the rest of it was so amazing. The rest of it was definitely so very amazing. And kudos to you, Egean Collins, for even being here to give us what you gave us. And I love you so very much. And I just wish that we had more time, but because we don't physically, I still keep you in my heart very deeply. I still hold you very close. I still, you know, WWED, what would Egan do? Yeah, I still do that. You know, like in certain situations, I still wonder, what would you do in this situation? You know, and I hope that the people's lives that you've touched and those that believed in you are still doing the things that are necessary to take care of themselves. Although, you know, there's no guarantee that fitness and, you know, doing all the right things are going to get you where you want to go, but it's worth a try. It's damn sure worth a try. It's worth giving it all you got until you don't have anything else to give, because that's what you did. It's exactly what you did. And I will never not be grateful for that. So, you know, once again, this is Adrienne Dionne, and this is Care Conversations, and Happy New Year once again, guys. You know, I apologize that this was drawn out so long, but I felt like I needed to get that out. You know, I needed to make sure you understood that, you know, this is the beginning of something new. This is on the precipice of something more amazing than we could ever imagine. And you'll hear more about this whole Egan deal, I'm sure. But not sure when. I'm not gonna make any promises, but you know, he's still definitely very well alive in our hearts and our spirits and on our social media pages and in the pages of his EMR system book, which is on Amazon as we speak. If you want to go ahead and get a copy of that, that would be great. He really, really put his heart and soul into that book, and I am very actually sad that he didn't get a chance to promote it the way that he should have. But at the same time, the legacy is here, and that's really a big deal as well. He left that legacy behind for us to enjoy and put into play and put into action into our own lives, so that he still lives on with us. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Which reminds me as well, you know, this whole situation has put me, you know, like I say, you know, when I get into stressful situations, I clean and I create. And I've also written another book, and it's titled The Care Collections, which is actually going to be a 4-part series. And the first of the Care Collections is the celebration soul alignment guide, as well as a journal, which is going to be coming out very shortly in February. Look for it. I will definitely be putting out more information about that when I actually have it available. But the Care Collections is a collection of four, which is the care from, of course, my series, which is the first of its celebration. And then I actually changed the affirmation to awaken, which is a very deep part of what we got going on. So the awakening, as well as the restoration, and then, of course, the empowerment. So right now, the first of the series is the celebration soul alignment guide, which comes along with a journal. That was something that's been very, very dear to my heart that I had started prior to all of this chaos ensuing, and God saw fit for me to go ahead and see it through right now. So that is definitely coming out very shortly. Like I said, February. And I hope everybody picks up a copy and actually just let it guide you. Because this whole thing is not going away. Care Conversations is going to be a big deal. The Care Collections is going to be a big deal. My speaking engagements will be a big deal. And, I will always be able to refer back to my situation as the catapult or the catalyst for, being able to put any of that out into the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Because I actually started out, getting my certification as a emotional intelligence coach back in 2023. And, I think this is just God's way of saying, so you want to be an emotional wellness coach, huh? And me saying, sure, I sure do. And he was like, you know what? Let me make sure that you're equipped to give the people what they need. Let me just make sure. So I'm going to take you through some things. And I want to make sure that you really understand the significance and the importance and the responsibility behind what you're asking. And please understand that I don't take any of this lightly. Not any of it. Those of you who are listening, those of you that will listen, none of this I take lightly. That's why it took me so long to actually get this episode done, because I wasn't ready, and I knew I wasn't ready, and I wasn't going to be ready until I was, and that was today. And I hope that this resonates with anybody who has been any type of situation similar to mine, or know somebody who has. These are the times that either make or break us. And I'm glad to say that I'm still standing, even though the mirror's curved. The song the song speaks for itself. The song definitely speaks for itself. So once again, my name is Adrienne Dionne. I am your host of Care Conversations, and this is all I have to say for tonight. And until we speak again, you be easy. And remember, no matter what anybody says, thinks, or does, your ultimate goal is taking care of yourself. Until our next conversation, good night.
Dancing through the chaos like it's my stage, flipping through my story page by page. Some days sunshine, some days rain. Every fall's a lesson, every breath a blessing. Bear with me, I'm a work in progress. Bear with me, still finding my process. Bear with me, it's a beautiful mess. Dancing through the chaos like it's my stage, flipping through my story page by page. Some days sunshine, some days rain. Every fall's a lesson, every breath a blessing. Bear with me, I'm a work in progress. Bear with me, still finding my process. Bear with me, it's a beautiful mess. Dancing through the chaos like it's my stage. Flipping through my story page by page. Some days sunshine, some days rain. Every fall's a lesson, every breath a blessing.